back to Seasoned Liberally. Today we're gonna make a pasta with a red sauce. This is something I grew up with, a ton of low quality cuts of meat, cooked for a nice long time. It's gonna really turn out just absolutely amazing, and everything's just gonna fall off the bone. You're gonna wanna stick around. So growing up, I lived in a family that had to, tighten their belt sometimes, make ends meet sometimes, and Mom was great at finding low-grade cuts of meat, and she knew how to cook them for a nice long time. We used to make this all the time on the weekends when we were kids. We're gonna talk today about a pasta and sauce. Some people call it Sunday gravy. So let's get right into it. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start by salting the meat and setting it on the side. So what I have today is I have down here a shank. So this is a beef shank. I have beef neck bones here, and then I have a couple of oxtails. Now, some of this stuff nowadays is starting to run a little more money because people learned with time how to cook this properly. You can swap out the beef neck bones for pork neck bones. It's perfectly fine. What we have here is about 4.5 pounds of meat. And this is gonna cook for a nice long time in a tomato sauce. One thing that's gonna happen at the end of this is you're gonna have some bones and some cartilage that's still gonna be inside the pan and inside the pot. That's okay. This is a family style meal, right? So people having a bone on the side of their plate, people picking up a bone and eating pieces off of it, that's all well and good because that's sort of the dish that we're making today. If you're not interested in having a big bone on your plate or using your hands a little bit, maybe this recipe isn't for you. So we're gonna salt the meat, but one thing I like to do beforehand is I'll salt a pan nice and generously, and then I'll pepper it. And then what I'll do is I'll lay the meat flat on here. So one side's pretty much done, and then I just have to salt and pepper the other side. It's gonna get a lot of nice flavor layers from the salt that's already on. Try to find the pieces that lay flat the best, right? So that's what we wanna do. Let me wash my hands off and we will start salting. All right, now we salt and pepper all of these. I'm gonna let this sit while I get the rest of my mise en place ready, and it's gonna be ready to fry off. So normally there's a little bit of pork that gets added. I'm gonna add some pork sausage later to this. If I cook it for a very long time, it's gonna actually get dry. So we're gonna add the sausage later. But you can certainly mix in some pork and some beef and it'll turn out wonderful. So I have 2 onions. I have a yellow and a white, but you can use 2 whites, 2 yellows. If they're medium size. If you have like 1 big onion, that's perfectly fine, just use 1 onion. I'm gonna dice these, not super fine, but I am gonna dice them. And so once it starts getting a little topply at the top here, once it starts getting so it's a little bit loose, I turn it to the side and slice a little bit off the top so it sits a little closer to the cutting board and it's not as wobbly at the top. And we're trying not to go through this root end. We don't want to go through this root end. If we go through the root end, then the onion's just going to fall apart. And we want to make sure it stays together as we dice it. So it starts to get a little topply, I pull it over, and then slice as much as I can off the root end. And here we go, here's 1 onion. So I hold my hand flat when I dice an onion and just slide it so there's no chance it's gonna cut into my palm or into my fingers. I lift my hand up like this and use the heel of my palm on the onion. 2 onions I had is about the limit. You don't want to go more than that. So don't do 2 big onions, just do 1 big onion if you have it. All right, 5 cloves of garlic. I have to get the garlic minced. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find the root end of the garlic in order to get it out of its husk, and just nip that root end right off, okay? Hold it nice and firm, and then cut that root end off, okay? Do that to all your pieces here. So hold it nice and firm, nip off the end. That little root end will keep that skin on like crazy. If you nip it off, the skin falls away. So now I know I said I had 5 cloves of garlic, but I really have 6 here because they're kind of, these 2 are kind of half a clove, so. Okay, so now if I want to get these out of here, I just swat them and they come right out of the paper. The paper just falls right off. Essentially, you just lift the paper up and they just fall directly out. Once you cut that root end, they essentially just, it doesn't hold on to them anymore, and they just fall right out of the paper. If you leave the root end on, what happens is it sticks to the root end, and so you'll be able to pull one side off, but then the root end's stuck to it. Trying to keep it in the center of the cutting board, press it down with your knife, just work your way across it back and forth. And let me tell you, the more you cut your garlic, the more flavor you're going to get out of it. You know, if you want to have less garlic flavor, you don't chop it as coarsely because it doesn't release all of its essential flavor into the dish. One of the best ways to get the most out of a piece of garlic is creaming it, where you use the side of your knife and a little bit of salt to smash the garlic, and that gets the most flavor out of garlic. The more minced it is, the more flavor you're going to get. And I would caution you from using too much garlic in this. I know I said use 5 cloves. Some people use 15 or 30 cloves. You're not making pasta sauce anymore. You're making buona cauda. So just try to stick with a small amount of garlic. Everything should be balanced in this recipe. It shouldn't just taste like a pot full of garlic. All right, I'm using a nice thick-bottomed, tall-sided stock pot for this. It's got a nice tight-fitting lid. That's what you want for this. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our meat and we're gonna start frying it in the bottom. We're gonna put a little oil in there and we're gonna start frying all the sides of it. And we're just gonna fry off all the meat until it's all brown. Add some oil to this. I'm using olive oil. You can use whatever oil you like. And yeah, there's a lot of oil in there, and there should be, because I want to make sure that each piece touches the bottom. And so when it touches the bottom, that oil helps cross that gap, and it makes it so that it's connected to something hot. Start with our shank, and I'll also put in an oxtail. And so here's the thing. You don't want to crowd the pan, right? So I got 2 things in there. I'm going to put in 1 more oxtail, a little bit of extra oil. It looks like I need a little oil on this side. And that's it. I don't want to crowd the pan. I don't want to put too much in there. It's just going to cook for a few minutes, get a nice brown, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes each side, flip it around. You know, on oxtails, get each side if you can, each piece to the outside and then both sides. You know, for the shank, I'm not going to do the edges. You're gonna need a nice big bowl too, because what we're gonna do is when we take it out, we're gonna put it in a bowl so we can, if any juices come out, we can capture those juices, because that's all gonna go back in the final sauce. All right, last few bits cooking up here. You can see I got a lot of fond in the bottom of this pan. That's what you want. You want to get a lot of fond in there. Those brown bits on the bottom, best part. It's gonna make this sauce really rich. So take these out, and we have a bowl full of browned meat. Now we add our onion to this oil. There's a little oil left in here, not a ton. We're gonna add our onion directly to that. And we're gonna cook this for about 5 minutes. Just stir it around. If it looks like, it feels like it's sticking a little, you can always add a little more oil. There wasn't a lot of oil on the bottom of this, so I'm gonna add a little more oil to it. As it cooks, you start seeing these onions get more and more brown. This is the good stuff. They're gonna cook for about maybe 3-4 minutes till they get translucent. And as they sweat, they're gonna get some of that fond off the bottom. All right, they're starting to, they cook for about 3 minutes or so, and they're starting to get translucent. They're picking up that fond off the bottom. Now we're gonna add our garlic. The garlic only needs to cook for about a minute. Wait till it starts getting fragrant, okay? 5 cloves of garlic directly in here, and we're gonna stir it up. Don't overcook your garlic. Don't burn it. And this recipe, like the bolognese lasagna, is very similar. We're just trying to get all the flavors that we can reduced down. So we're getting all the water out of everything so that all the flavors start to become concentrated. All the water comes out of the onions. All the water comes out of the garlic. Nice concentrated flavors. Same thing with the meat. So it's cooked for about a minute. It's fragrant. It's right where we want to be. Into that 3 tablespoons of tomato paste, right into the bottom. And we're going to stir this up. Now we want this to become the color of rust in the bottom. Okay? Get everything in here mixed up with it. Stir it around. Okay? And then on the bottom, you're going to start to see a rust color. It's going to take a minute, 2 minutes, something like that. You're going to see a nice rust color start to appear down at the bottom. Now I have 2 cups of wine here, and we're going to deglaze with this wine. This is a dry red wine. Always try to cook with something that you're going to drink. And you can smell that start to cook. It starts to smell like roasted, sun-dried tomatoes. And you can see in the bottom there, I'm getting this nice rust color, and that's what you want to get. You want to cook that paste, and now it's nice and ripping hot. We're just going to pour our 2 cups of wine in there. We're going to give that a stir. And we want to reduce this by half. So just like we reduced down everything so far, you know, we reduced down the onions, we got rid of the liquid. Same thing with the garlic. We're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to reduce this by about half. It should take around 10 minutes or so. And the wine I use today is a Federalist. It's a red blend, and I'm going to drink a little bit of it here while I wait. Cheers. Oh, that's smooth. That's a great wine. I love red blends. I'm a huge red blend fan. Really properly blended red, outstanding wine. Looking good. You smell that alcohol sort of burning off. Alcohol has a lower boiling point than water, and so it's going to burn off too. And so when we put this in the oven, we're going to use a lid. We're going to put a lid on it. And I won't have an opportunity to reduce this down if I just put this in and then threw in the rest of the ingredients. So we're going to let this reduce for, like I say, like about 10 minutes so that we can get rid of that liquid. It's going to go off in this steam. It's just releasing, and so it's going to concentrate that wine flavor. All right, as you can see, it's liquid, but it has reduced, and that's what we want to see. Okay, it's liquid, but it has reduced down. So next we want to add our spices to this. I have a half teaspoon of chili flakes and a full teaspoon of oregano, dried oregano. Okay. To that, I'm going to add 2 big cans of crushed tomatoes. A couple of things I'm going to do. First is I'm going to put my herbs that I want to come out later. These are reusable little cloth bags that I use for that. I'm going to put inside of here 2 bay leaves, 1 nice big honkin' sprig of rosemary, which I'm going to fold in half, and about 3 or 4 small sprigs of thyme. And I'm just keeping the stems on here too, because it's all gonna just get cinched up into here, tied up, and then dropped in when it's ready to go in. So that it's basically like a tea bag, and it will steep its flavors into my sauce without actually getting these inedible parts sort of floating around in it. We're gonna set this on the side for now. Now, it's starting to bubble, it's starting to boil. That's good, good sign, means it's getting warm. To it, we're gonna add some stock. Now, I wanna show you the stock. Do you see it jiggling? That's good stock. And I'm gonna add that. You see it pouring out? Look at that. Now there's the stock. Pour that right out in there. It's gonna melt down. All right, so as that melts down and starts to come up to temperature, we're gonna put our sachet in here and stuff it down in the bottom so it's near the bottom of the sauce, and it'll start seeping. You'll be able to find it. I tied it and it won't come undone. And so I'll just be able to find it when I pour everything out into a bowl, and I'll pluck it out at the end. So as it comes up to temperature, taste your sauce. See if you think it needs a little bit of salt right now, because it might. You don't want to salt it perfectly, but you do want to add just a touch if you think it needs it quite a bit, and mine does need it quite a bit. So just taste it. Just put dip a spoon in there, taste it, see what it tastes like. If you think it can use a little salt right now, add a little. I'm gonna add a little pepper too. Okay, it's bubbling. It's ready for the meat, so I'm gonna start adding the meat in. I'm gonna slowly just add pieces of meat back in, trying to get them covered as much as I can. Bigger pieces near the bottom. Don't just dump the meat in there, your sauce is gonna get splashed everywhere. Looking good. Looking good. All right, everything's nice and covered. I wanna show you what I have in here is a bunch of juice that came off. That gets rolled right in here, okay? That's the good stuff. So I'm gonna run this over to the oven. It's covered. It's gonna cook in the oven, covered for 2 hours. Now I'm not gonna touch it at 2 hours. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cook my sausages off at 2 hours. Then I'm gonna at 2.5 hours add those sausages in here so they don't cook with it. They'll get a little dry if they cook all the way through with it. And we wanna brown those up too. So 2 hours, I'm gonna set my timer, and then we'll be back in 2 hours to fry off the sausages. To my hot pan, I'm gonna add some olive oil to get these nice and hot. Now these are hot sausages that I got from the butcher. And as you can see, I got some nice smoking olive oil here. I'm gonna drop these right in. And we're just gonna fry them up and get them brown. That's all we wanna do is get them nice and brown. So these don't have to cook for very long, just a few minutes. What we wanna do is just brown them up, get them nice and brown. Every side nice and brown. All right, our sausages have cooked enough. We're gonna take them off the heat, set them on the side for now. We're gonna go get our sauce so we can put it and bury them nice deep inside of there. Great stuff. We're gonna slide our sausages right into the top here. They're gonna cook alongside the rest of it. Now it looks like there's a little bit of oil on there. That's okay. Before we serve this, I can take and pull some of that oil off. Back in the oven, it's been 2.5 hours thereabouts. It's got another half an hour to cook. So I'm gonna get it back in the oven. Here is our sauce after 3 hours. Look at how pretty. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna let it sit while we boil up our pasta. I'm gonna get my pasta water boiling, cook my pasta off, and I'm gonna come back to this sauce. I'm gonna let it sit though. So I'm not gonna bore you with me making the pasta, but I will show you how much salt I put in to pasta water. 2 to 3 big handfuls of salt go in there. You want it to taste like the sea. You want it to taste briny. So if you have a little bit of oil on the top, it's okay, you can get it off. Just dab a little bit of paper towel on there. Pull it off. Voila. Now if there's a ton of oil on there, you can work your way around with a ladle, but there's not a ton on this one. This should be pretty easy to get off of here. There we go. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take and pull some of the bones out. So any of the bones that I find that aren't attached to anything, I'm gonna pull out. But of course, anything that's attached comes right along with it. Sausages come into his pot. You can see I found a piece of this in here. This is that shank, and that shank came apart, and that bone is in here, and we just want to get rid of that bone. There's nothing on this, so we're just going to put that bone in our refuse bowl. We're working our way around. I feel one more little piece. That's an oxtail. That comes out. Now, if you want, you can work your way through and pull some of this off, right? All this is perfectly cooked. So if you want, you could pull it off of the bone and then just throw your bone into the side here. So here we go. I'm going to pour this into the top here. Oh, look at that. Look at how nice that looks. So now we just wait for our pasta to finish. You can, if you like, sauce out the whole bowl of pasta, but I'm just going to do a little bit because I want to save it as I work my way through it. So I took the liberty of cutting some of these sausages in half. And so I've got a couple of sausages. I'm going to put it on here. And if you get a nice bone in there, it just sits on the plate, you know, you can eat around it. Like I say, this is one of those dishes that you wind up sharing with friends and family. People who don't care that you have a bone on your plate, you might pick it up and eat it. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan on top of this before I try it. All right, let's give it a shot here. I'm gonna take a taste of this. Little piece of pasta. Piece of sausage. Oh man, that tastes like a cooked all day, and it is outstanding. Here's a piece of that neck bone that fell off. Look at how it's fallen apart. Oh man, you would not be sad if you sat down in front of a plate of this. And look at how robust that sauce is. Look at how it coats the noodles. All it took was just to cook it for a nice long time. And all the bones in here, what they do is they release their collagen if there's any in there, and it helps thicken this sauce as well. This is a great, great all-day recipe. I hope you try it. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that great stuff. Hopefully you're enjoying the channel. Let me know if you are in the comments. You know, go down there and write a little comment. Let me know if you tried this out. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll catch you next time on Season Liberally.